they've lost their loved ones. They've been so devastated by the loss because when there is a crash, 9 times out of 10, it's violent. It's a violent crime. Their family members sometimes are decapitated, sometimes they're dismembered. It's not like this is what they're left with. So why, if you please support this bill, we can stop this. We can stop impaired driving. This is something that's 100% preventable. Not many things in life are, but this is preventable. So we ask you, please support this bill and let's stop, drunk driving. Let's save lives. Let's do this. Enough is enough. We've been on this path. I've been 25. There are some who've been on longer than I have. We've been on this, fighting this fight, trying to stop impaired driving so people can go home at night. We want you to go home at night. We want everybody to be able to go home at night to their family. And so how can we do this? Pass this bill, and you can do that. You can save lives. There is no reason not to vote for it. There's no reason not to. Unless you think that, it's going to affect your family members or somebody that you know, then I say that you're being selfish because you got to think about others. Please support this bill, and let's stop drunk driving. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ellen. Just to mention, it's been since 1999, 24 years since we changed from the .1 to the .08. So it's time we done something. Captain Williams with the Cherokee County Sheriff's Department, sir.
Try to be real brief. If you didn't know, Representative Clampett has a background in service with the fire department, served many years. That was my original goal. I wanted to be a firefighter because everybody loves a firefighter. But I was starting out as a volunteer. I responded to a call, and I arrived on scene, and I was the first one on scene. The bystander hands me a baby, and the baby had a split lip. It was a head-on collision. He said, I don't know what to do with this baby. So he hands me this baby, and I take this baby, and I held this baby in front of its mother as the mother was pinned in the front of the car, and I held that baby in front of the mother as the mother passed away. And that little baby searched me out and found me 20 years later to thank me for what I did for her and her mother. But that changed me. That put me on a different path. No offense to the firefighters, but it was like, as a firefighter, you don't go out and try to stop things from happening, being proactive. But I wanted to try to stop these things from happening. So that led to my career on the highway patrol. And I'm trying to carry on that vision of highway safety here at the Sheriff's Office. I wanted to speak a little bit about some of the other bills that are associated with this. The House Bill 85, one of the most important things about arresting a DWI offender is the prosecution. The use of alcohol screening devices in North Carolina, most people don't realize what it is. In North Carolina, we can only testify to whether or not there's a detectable presence of alcohol or not, and that's it. In 26 other states, the technology that goes into these instruments is basically foolproof. They're calibrated, they're scientifically validated, and in 26 other states, they're able to testify in probable cause as to what that reading is. And for the prosecution in a DWI case, most of the time where you're going to lose that case is going to be in a probable cause hearing. People that's been in the testimony of these, that's where a lot of the failures in the prosecution. We need this ability to be able to testify to that reading in a probable cause hearing, and that's an importance of House Bill 85. Also, in 16.5, the immediate civil revocation. In North Carolina, if you arrest somebody for a DWI and we take them before an intoxilizer and they submit to that breath test and they are above a .08 at this point, then they get an immediate civil revocation of their driver's license, and that person's not allowed to drive. Well, what we're seeing right now is so many people are now either mixing their alcohol with poly drug use where they're using other drugs, or maybe they're just straight up impaired on drugs where there is not going to be that alcohol reading, and there's no method to immediately revoke that person's driving privilege for an arrest for DWI without that numerical reading. This bill will change that to where if they're arrested for an implied consent offense, then they will have their driver's license suspended at that point in time. It's not requirement upon that alcohol reading. And also, the House Bill 212, I think that's an important bill as well, because we realize that people do make mistakes, and I don't think life should be all about punishment. This gives an opportunity for people that they have made a mistake, if they're able to go through and follow through in these treatments. And it's very important for these people, and it shows that they've made an attempt and they're following the instructions of the court. It gives them an opportunity to get their driving privilege back. And especially for us in the western part of the state, a driving privilege is it's important for people to be able to find their way back and forth to work and to care for their kids. We don't want impaired people doing it, but for people who've made a mistake and have completed these treatment conditions, it gives them an opportunity to be able to get their driving privilege back. And I think that's a good tool to put in with these other conditions. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Captain. Leah with National Transportation. Your turn.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. My name is Leah Walton. I'm a safety advocate with the National Transportation Safety Board. Thank you for inviting the NTSB to share about our safety recommendation that supports HB 148 to lower the legal BAC per se limit in North Carolina from .08 to .05. The NTSB is an independent federal agency charged by Congress with investigating transportation disasters, including highway crashes, and issuing safety recommendations to save lives and reduce injuries, preventing future crashes. Since 2013, the NTSB has recommended that all 50 states, the District of Columbia, and Puerto Rico establish a BAC per se limit of .05 or lower. In 2018, Utah was the first state to do so. The passage of HB 148 would make North Carolina the second state to embrace this proven life-saving countermeasure. In 2020, over 11,000 people were killed in crashes involving an impaired driver in the United States. That represents almost 1/3 of all traffic deaths, and this proportion has remained unchanged for 25 years. We have tried many approaches to combat alcohol-impaired driving, and some have made a significant difference. But the number of crashes and deaths remains stubbornly high. In North Carolina alone, alcohol-impaired driving crashes killed over 3,800 people between 2011 and 2020. More needs to be done, and evidence shows that lowering the legal BAC per se limit to .05 will move the needle. With more than 100 countries having BAC limits set at .05 or lower, the benefits of these sensible, safety-minded limits are well documented. The .05 law works as a general deterrence. It helps modify the behavior of all drivers by encouraging them to separate drinking from driving. After the lower BAC law went into effect in Utah, a study conducted by NHTSA, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, showed that more than 1 in 5 drinkers reported that they had planned in advance for a sober ride home. Research suggests that a .05 law would reduce fatal alcohol-related crashes by an estimated 11%. In 2019, the year after the Utah .05 BAC law went into effect, the state saw reductions in crash rates overall, as well as reductions in alcohol-involved crashes. And there was no negative impact on alcohol sales, tourism, tax revenues, and DUI arrests. Because we know it works, we at the National Transportation Safety Board strongly support legislation that will lower the legal BAC per se limit to .05. Addressing impaired driving on America's roads requires bold leadership, and we applaud Representative Clampett as well for introducing this important legislation, and for the Western DUI Task Force for their efforts to improve roadway safety in North Carolina for all. Thank you.
Thank all the speakers. I'll now entertain questions from the media or the public. Yes, sir. I'm looking at you. You're good to go.
I've got several, if you don't mind. First, the Western Task Force, is that a government entity?
Nope.
Volunteer organization?
All volunteer. Nobody's paid, hired, or elected. We do it all volunteers.
Okay, and does anybody have an example of an accident where after the accident, the driver was given a breathalyzer or a blood test and their BAC came in below .08, between .05 and .08?
I could tell you one, but the driver was not convicted of the DWI, so.
Well, nor would I expect them to be because they were below .08. So I'm trying to get a sense of how often that happens and whether anybody can give me a specific case where that happens.
NHTSA has come out and said that 2,041 people died in 2020 with drivers from point. NHTSA has come out and reported that 2,041 people died in 2020 with drivers driving at .01 to .07, so below the legal limit.
Okay, but we don't know. I mean, there's still that .01 to .05. We don't know what's .05 to .0. And is that an estimation, like a calculation they did? Or is
No, that is hard fact. Mhm. Yeah.
And then Representative Clampett or whoever else wants it, the arguments you're making here sound very similar to me to the arguments that Democrats and gun control advocates make about guns, and what we typically hear from the Freedom Caucus, which I believe you're a member of, is that more laws don't stop criminals. Criminals are going to continue committing those crimes. So why is that different than this issue?
I appreciate your question, and thank you. I don't want to politicize this event that we're talking about between the Democrats and their gun control legislation or request. This is about saving lives.
In due respect, sir, we're in the General Assembly. This is a political body. Multiple elected officials, if some of y'all are sheriffs are here. What y'all do is politics. I don't understand why one argument works for guns, or excuse me, works for alcohol, but not guns. I mean, someone was talking about losing a generation of children. The number one killer in this country now of children is firearms.
And we can relate that too. In the top three, as second with that is drugs, and third would be alcohol. Tell you what, I'll let the law enforcement end respond to that, because you're invoking and requesting something with, I'd say, apples and oranges, but still. Chief Hollinshead, I think you'd be the best.
Thank you for that.
I'm here for you.
What law enforcement and you know, in generality, law enforcement, like Matt, we deal with the victims of people's their decisions that they make every day. And the reason we're back in the .05 issue is we just feel like that will help people make the correct decision to help save lives on our highways. It's the same thing as far as whatever tool whether it's a pill, whether it's a bottle of alcohol, whatever, they make the conscious decision to drink that alcohol, to take that pill, and then get behind the wheel of a vehicle. And we're just looking for ways to help keep people from behind the wheel. We talked earlier, we don't want our does anybody here want their surgeon to provide to do an operation on you at a .05 level? Does anybody want your pilot on an aircraft to fly at an 05 level? No. We think it's the same to keep people from behind the wheel to make that conscious decision. Again, I think, you're equating the thing with the guns. You still have a person making the conscious decision to take that firearm, and instead of going hunting with it, they take it to a school or whatever. So we're just thinking, we're looking for ways for people to make the best conscious decisions to help save lives, whatever that is. And in this case, it's to lower that BAC level where people make, again, it doesn't affect the amount of alcohol sold. It doesn't affect tourism. That's all been proven in Utah. We just hope that people make that better decision, whether that's through designated driver, through an Uber, through a cab, whatever. And it's all about decisions, whether that's a pill, a bottle of alcohol, or in your example, a firearm. It's the person behind it that's making that conscious decision. In this case, that weapon is a vehicle. And we just want to save lives. And there's a lot of states looking. I was just up in Alexandria, Virginia, with a group of police chiefs, and they want to know what happens with this bill. They want to look at North Carolina and what happens in our legislature, and I just think North Carolina needs to be the leader in helping to save lives.
I'm not sure I've heard an answer to my question. If anybody
I'll take it.
Okay,
I'll take
Commissioner Causey.
I'll take a stab at it, Travis, and I know what you're saying. You can pass all the laws in the world, but it's only good for the law-abiding citizens, because the criminals are going to ignore them anyway. So, and I think I've heard that, but from what I've heard from MAD and the judges and law enforcement, this is another tool that would help convict people that might not otherwise be convicted. And, you know, from an insurance standpoint, as insurance commissioner, I just see it as another tool that could help us hold down automobile insurance rates, relieve a little of the upward pressure. And then from the Safe Kids standpoint, maybe even if it saves one life, it's certainly worth it. So I don't see any downside to it, you know, from a safety aspect. So thank you.
It just, not to belabor the point, but why doesn't that argument work on guns?
Well, I'm not here. Well, I know what you're saying on the guns, that you can pass all the laws you want to, but it's only going to work for the law-abiding citizens. The criminals are going to get them anyway. And so I don't know that it's a fair comparison, the gun argument versus the impaired driving argument. I see some similarities in what you're saying, because as far as the passage laws, because you can pass law after law, but if somebody's not going to abide by them, the criminals say, we don't need that. It's not going to make any difference to those folks. It'll only make a difference with those law-abiding citizens. But I think their example from Utah is pretty good proof that it didn't slow down any alcohol sales, but it did slow down some of the deaths in the drunk driving.
And then just my last question, does anybody know how many drinks 0.5 is in an hour?
Yes, you can do a 110-pound woman having 2 glasses of wine in 1 hour will be a 0.74. And that's from the Wisconsin Crime Lab statistics and information. And also with that, our crime labs are able to backtrack based on what the BAC is a person to their body and weight. And there's a formula that they use with that and can identify that exactly. And the 0.7 to wine, and that's information I have from RAL on a recent publication that they have online. So, and if you need a copy of that, I can give it to you after the meeting. Okay. Any other questions? Yes, sir. I can't answer why the other states haven't, but I can answer to why we are now doing it in North Carolina. One is because I'm elected in the State House and been participatory with our Western North Carolina DWI task force. And that being the most active task force in the state and probably the only real active one in the state, we take and look at what happens to us in our region and statewide. We don't look just at DWIs that occur in Western North Carolina. We look at them statewide. I mean, if there's something happens in New Hanover County, Director Pitt or some member of the team will know something about it. We review what's going on with that, what the pretrial release requirements are going to be and things of that nature. So it's not just a regional thing, it's a statewide thing with us.
I can share with you that this year there are 5 other states that are considering a .05 BAC law, and prior to 2023, there have been a few other states that have considered it. We made our recommendation back in 2013. We made a host of other recommendations in that same report around impaired driving, and some of them have been adopted and some of them have not. We have many, many impaired driving safety recommendations that are issued to states, and we would love to see them all enacted. We do believe that if our recommendations are implemented, that lives would be saved, that crashes would go down, but we are not a regulatory body, and so all we can do is come to states like North Carolina and talk about the benefits of our safety recommendations, and hope that you all take that information and make positive change.
Yes, sir. We had breakfast this morning, a legislative breakfast, and we did have, I had senators there that are on the other side of the House, Democrats, and I had other House members in there that are Democrats. So I am believing, I think what it boils down to, there was a lot of misunderstanding, misconception of what the bill was, and using this morning's breakfast to help explain a lot of that to our own individuals. So I believe that. Just what is it? You know, what's it going to do? What's the attempt of it and stuff like that? One of my conversations with the senator was, this was great. We've never had this conversation before. Could we have again? Could we do a caucus with this, et cetera? And I went, absolutely. It's all about saving lives. The one thing about the alcohol or impaired driver, whether it's a prescription drug you take or whether it's the alcohol or whatever it might be impairing the driver, it's a conscious decision that is totally preventable. I think everybody would agree with that. No one's telling you have to have that alcohol or that drug to impair you, et cetera. It's totally preventable. And it's a conscious decision, and that's what we want to do, is change a behavior in people's decision-making process. And that's what an error in judgment is. It's an impairment. It deludes the mind's capability of making conscious and rational decisions. Oh, yeah, I'm fine to drive. Well, I got the .04 to 06 goggles in my office. I meant to bring them, but any of you want to wear those, I'll be glad to let you wear them for about 8 hours up here, or an hour if you like. And you can see how your abilities to even reach and grab a doorknob, you'll miss it by 6 inches. It's higher than you think, so you're cognitive. We've been here about 35, going on 40 minutes. Let me wrap up. Is that about it on questions? Oh, you got. No, the research is out there, and that's that information, and I do have a packet I can give you. I regretfully only have one. The bottom line is there is, by listing, if you go from .01 up to .07 or 7.4, I gave the example a while ago, your cognitive abilities, your muscle control, your ability to take and have reaction time to, and let's look. We're on the interstate. If you're driving 60 miles an hour, that's 1 mile a minute. That's 88 feet per second. And if you have just a 0.2 second delay, you've done run into somebody. Car's 20 foot long. Okay? So we can put in relationship to exactly what those diminished states are of an individual and their diminished capacities. All this is totally preventable. Bottom line is, saving life might be yours. So, I mean, that's just the bottom line. I know visuals are good. Everybody notice the crystal ball on my table? In about 1 hour we've been in here, there'll be a crash. That crash will kill somebody. The crystal ball represents we don't know who, where, when. And so the bottom line is we don't know when, where it's going to happen. But one thing about it is for sure, we know it's going to happen. That's the downside. So I have 2 other things to say, and they are, bear with me a half sec. I can ad-lib that. One, we'll be asking the Governor's Highway Safety Administration to fully fund CAM, constant alcohol monitoring devices, for all 100 counties. I'm sure that'll be a budgetary request, but the CAM bracelets, as they're called, are 100% effective for those people that are qualified to get one, and it has a 90-day window of sobriety. And to our knowledge at this time, there has not been anyone violate that pretrial condition. That gives 90 days of sobriety to individuals with a CAM bracelet. The second part of it was going to be, I asked the Administrative Office of Courts to review the DWI cases, and the cases that are out there pending right now are running up to about 13 months, and I'd like to find out reasons why those things are taking so long in some cases. I don't know whether it's lack of testimony, judge shopping, and things of that nature, but I'd like to find out. So with that, I'll conclude and thank everyone for their time being here today. Y'all drive safe. Don't get run over.
Yeah.